Barrister Akere Muna is the leader of Cameroon's Now movement. He was his party's flag bearer in the October 22nd presidential election last year, but pulled out at the last minute to support Maurice Kamto, who came out second in the polls behind incumbent President Paul Biya, who's then proclaimed winner of the vote by the Supreme Court. Barrister Akere, a very warm welcome to our studios.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, you are in France to attend a peace forum organised on the sidelines of the 75th anniversary commemoration of the Normandy Allies landings, which proved crucial to ending World War II. Now, how relevant was the meeting, the peace forum meeting, to the disturbing situation in your country?
Well, thank you very much. I was actually invited to be part of a panel that had to do with the situation in Cameroon, which they call the nascent crisis. I mean, I have an issue with that because it's not really nascent. It's fully blown from the figures that you've given. So the relevance was that these meetings, which is the second edition of it, looks into ways and means of dealing with different paths towards peace in different conflicts. It can be environmental, it can be to do with small countries, it can be to do with ethnic situations. But I think it's a new process, and the quality of people there shows that it is going to be blazing the trail in this area of discussing peace.
But how relevant was it, for instance?
Well, for me, it was relevant because when you discuss with people who don't know about the crisis, they ask questions that you don't think about. And in my own session, I was very happy to have the lady of Human Rights Watch, Laria, who, of course, was refused entry into Cameroon, a couple of weeks ago. She came to do her normal research, and at the airport in Douala, she was put back on the Air France flight. So it was a Human Rights Watch panel, and they had done a lot of work in Cameroon, so it was permitted us to exchange and think about it. And in a session, we were fortunate to have the former president of Burundi, President Buyoya, who walked in and also was able to give his insights. And it's very interesting what he said. He said he thinks the crisis in Cameroon is a very easy one to solve. All you need is political will. That was pretty good.
Now, you travelled to Normandy days after Cameroon's sole national oil refinery, Sonara, based in the English-speaking town of Limbe, was gutted by a mysterious fire which forced the company to shut down production and declare a force majeure. Now, what has the government said about the origins of the explosion?
Well, so far the government has said that it is having an investigation, which is only wise to find out the origin of the fire. But from what they are saying, it has been an accident. Now, is it an accident or is it an act of God? That I really don't know. We'll have to wait for the report to come out. But of course, there have been various claims, about people being responsible for it. But I think that, one will be prudent to wait for the outcome of the report.
Now, one of the separatist groups has actually claimed responsibility for the attack. Now, if it turns out to be true, it will be the first major act of sabotage of a vital source of revenue for the country at a time when the government is feeling a squeeze on its funds, particularly funds raised for the war effort. Now, how worried are you about this new twist if this fire turns out to be the first one?
Well, I am not very worried about the claims because the accident has happened. I'm more worried about the fact that somebody tries to mimic this to show that they have the capacity. That, to me, is a greater worry. Now, the claims by the separatists, there are many factors that make me, be doubtful about this. And the irony is that, for once, this group of separatists, it is they, and the government says it is not them. So it's quite a real twist of events. But, as I say, my worry is that to show that they did the first one, we might have some people who try to do something similar to this, and that's more frightening because it will cause them to go somewhere else where we still have stockpiles of fuel, Douala or Yaoundé, and that can be frightening, yes.
Now, let's touch on the role of the government in this crisis. There have been claims that the army are either doing not enough. For instance, in Wum in the northwest recently, there was videos circulating of the army not trying to stop the Bororo population there from chasing down the Amazonian fighters.
Correct.
Or they're accused also of actually using heavy-handed tactics. Now, what is your view here on the question?
Well, the thing is, when you're dealing with conflict at this level, there are many elements that come into play. Firstly, when you're dealing with a population, it is known that the population can be stirred into having their own groups to fight against whoever is seen as the aggressor. It's sad in Cameroon because the population is caught between the army and the different groups. In the case of Wum, which you mentioned, now the Bororos, who have on the other side of the border with Nigeria, the Fulanese, have complained about the fact that their cattle have been attacked and things like that have happened. So they have now at certain times indexed the Ambas fighters, the terrorists or the secessionists. On the other hand, there are claims that there have been instigations, there have been groups that have been created who are sort of funded to be able to stir trouble in there. So it's quite a quagmire. But all in all, the sad fact is that the population, is really being squeezed by these two forces, and that is sad. And in later things in Wum, it's very bad because it developed into actually a confrontation between communities who came around machetes and stuff like that, and that is very bad.
And you think it could spread?
It could spread. It could spread because we've had incidents of communities in different parts of the country, going against each other, and this happened in the extreme north as well with the Boko Haram fighting, and this is a well-known phenomenon, especially as the government uses collective punishment. We are over 200 villages burnt. So if one or two gendarmes are killed, they will come there and they just burn down the village, which is something learned from Algeria and Vietnam. But that only fuels the fire, because the homeless from these new villages, the young guys from these villages move on to the next and mount a bigger force. So the government has to make sure its forces don't behave with impunity. Around the 20th of May, we had a 4-month-old baby was shot. Last year sometime, there was an incident of the army shooting at executing a woman with 2 babies, stuff like that. I think the army must be the responsible force. And it can't say, well, on the other side, they're doing the same thing.
Now, the Cameroon government has been at odds with its Western allies over their pressing demands for Yaoundé to initiate an unconditional and inclusive dialogue to resolve the grievances that have actually been expressed by the English-speaking population. Do you believe, or how much credit do you give to last month's announcement by Prime Minister Dion Gouté that President Biya is now ready to dialogue on all issues?
Well, firstly, I have to congratulate Prime Minister Dion Gouté because he's somebody I know personally from way back. We are both legally trained, and he has put a lot of effort and goodwill into this by actually moving to the Northwest and trying to talk to the people. But I don't believe he has all the tools he needs, and I don't believe he has the kind of elbow room he needs to be able to do what he's called upon to do. So the biggest problem we have is the fact that the people have lost all confidence in the government. And the biggest element in any discussion is trust. And I think the government, since the 90s, has lost, that. I'll just give you a quick example. For example, in the 90s, when they had the elections and Biya won by 2 points, many of us feel that Frundi then won the elections. The Anglophone community thought that Frundi didn't win because he was Anglophone. that gave a new boost to the Anglophone movement that came into a conference that was called the All Anglophone Conference. And they asked for a federal system of government. Well, the government will listen. We will give you autonomous regions, which is almost the same. It's just in the name. So the Constitution of 96 had autonomous regions. And as we speak today in 2019, that is not yet moving along. So I think the trust, that is why, of course, those who spoke about federalism in the 90s are now talking about secession, and that's serious. And the government is managing this for 3 years. We started with people with stones and road blockades. Now we have people with rifles and then guns. Something is being mismanaged here.
Now, a group of religious leaders led by Cardinal Toomey have been trying to initiate a mediation of their own for more than a year now, but without any success, owing to the reluctance of the administration to simply sign the permit that would actually allow them to hold the conference, the All Anglophone Conference.
Correct, yeah.
Now, they've put in a new request to hold the forum on the 12th and 13th of July in Bamenda, the capital of northwest Cameroon, in the northwest region. Now, what do you know about the preparations and the level of enthusiasm the initiative is generating in the Anglophone world?
I will be very surprised if the government allows the meeting to go on, because the outcome of such an Anglophone conference is to have what can be called a common Anglophone platform and certain aggregated requests from Anglophones. And that would be a huge pressure on the government. So I don't believe that they keep saying they're going to authorize it, but I don't believe that they are really going to go that way, because they're afraid that it might degenerate into something bigger, some kind of a national conference of Anglophones, really. So for the moment, you can claim that there are many different groups of Anglophones with different tendencies. But if you had an all-Anglophone conference, it crystallizes their position into one aggregate, one position. And that could be a huge pressure on the government. So I don't believe that they will let that happen. We need a national dialogue as well that brings together all Cameroonians, because we have a system, a political system, which has been tinkered with since 1960. Don't forget, we have had only 2 presidents since 1961, just 2. And so the system we have is actually a system that has been tinkered. And in terms of crisis management, the government is only recycling its mistakes. It's sad what we have in Cameroon because of the lack of openness. Seriously speaking, the government is smoking its own exhaust and getting high on it. That's what I could say.
Now, isn't the fundamental problem that Paul Biya is not involving himself enough in the crisis, and perhaps because of rumoured problems with his health, that maybe there is a group of people who've got vested interest in maintaining a situation of crisis or not being able to solve the crisis?
Well, listen, my position in Cameroon in terms of corruption is that the government is highly corrupt. Therefore, we have a group of oligarchs who have basically captured the state. Now, when you have a corrupt system, the first thing is, how do you preserve yourselves? And these guys need the political power to preserve themselves. So we're going to witness this going on and going forward by people who feel they need protection. And their best protection now is Biya, but you and I will not forever, and I think that works for Biya as well. So they have to think, and that is the problem they have. And they think, by governing by ruse and pretending to concede certain things, they could make this last. But I think that the clock is ticking out very fast. So I think they can't succeed. The economy is failing. The democracy is hogwash. The cultural situation is very bad. The unity of the country is at stake. Basically, everything is telling us that we must do something. I mean, if you have a country you're governing with close to 600,000 people internally displaced, you have 200,000 villages burnt, you have 50,000 refugees, you have 2 regions where 80% of children don't go to school, you have women and ladies, girls, early pregnancies, living in the forest. That's a really dire situation. And if he doesn't move any president, I don't know who he can move.
So something must be done, as you say, but what?
We must talk.
So national
You must have a
conferences
national
should maybe-
dialogue. You must have a dialogue. We must have one in which everybody, you can organize people to speak. I mean, the government is so unwilling to have dialogue that even in the parliament, where it has a majority, it is refused for there to be a debate about the Northwest crisis. In the Senate, the oldest person, who was 100 years old, Thon Mukete, had to almost act as a rogue speaker to address the issue in parliament. The government is unwilling to face this. It is in a real sad state of denial, and that's the danger.
So you're not particularly optimistic about the immediate future?
I'm not optimistic about the immediate future if the government maintains the same stance. The pressure from international organizations is what is causing the government to have the jitters now. The pressure from the UN, from the American, from the US, from many other countries. Recently, the French Minister of Foreign Affairs said that, a political solution is the way to go. The African Union has said that. And, if the government continues in this state of denial, we are looking at a pressure cooker with no escape route for the vapor. It's going to blow.
Thank you very much, Barrister Akere Muna.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.